Hello, everybody. Chris Fluke here, Chris Fluke Podcast, episode number 70. I'm back in the barn here, as you can see. We're recording. You probably hear some birds chirping. You might hear some other stuff here, man. This barn was built in the 1800s, maybe even 1700s. We don't know the exact date, but some random stuff that happens in here some days. I don't know what I'm walking into when I open these barn doors. But anyhow, we're in the middle of a heat wave here in Pennsylvania. Now, it's not that bad, right? It's summertime. You know, we're going to be hitting triple digits at some point in time, but I got a youth camp going on. All right, last week we had our week one of youth camp. We had about 17 kids out here. And these youth camps are designed to be, you know, we set the max at 15 people. Obviously, we exceeded it a bit. But anyhow, what we're trying to do here is just trying to encourage fitness for the youth, right? We're trying to get these kids outside. We're trying to get these kids moving around, get a little bit stronger, learn a few principles, work as a team, you know, have the ability to be coached by different people, maybe different people other than their parents or their usual coaches that they have at the like local township level, and ultimately just trying to encourage good positive memories and good positive experiences revolving around physical fitness. So these kids, as they move on in life, you know, they're going to be able to, you know, hopefully sustain a physical fitness regimen, so they could stay in the best shape of their life. They could, you know, get involved in things that are great for the body and mind, right? So at this camp, it's more than just this camp. I ran a private camp a few weeks ago. I coach high school football. We were just at this 7-on-7 thing over the weekend where we had 5 7-on-7 things, which basically is a passing camp. If you're not too familiar, basically you have a quarterback, running backs, receivers, and they go up against the defense's back 7 players, which is linebackers and defensive backs. No offensive linemen, no defensive linemen, no pads other than a helmet. And what these things are trying to encourage is just, 1, some competition, 2, getting some repetition, some high-level repetition in, not just kind of jogging through plays at 3/4 speed. We're going hard, and we're going to see what works, right? We're going to test out moves now. We're going to test out plays. We're going to test out different schemes and all kinds of different stuff, right? I mean, that's the whole point of these things. They're these organized scrimmages, but there's free play involved where, hey, here's the play, go at it, man. Go explore, go learn some things, and try to be successful while doing so. So, like, where I'm going with this is that I've got experience from maybe 6 to 7 years old, all the way up to high school age kids, and I've noticed something here. Kids are struggling dealing with adversity. You know, every coach that you ever see, not every coach, right, but you hear about adversity all the time. A college coach talking about adversity, NFL coaches, professional coaches in other sports, right? They're always talking about adversity and overcoming adversity, right? How to deal with adversity in a way, you know, adapting, overcome. I think it's one of the branches of the military: improvise, adapt, overcome. You know, at some point in time in our lives, we're going to experience some hardship. I've noticed with youngsters, and this goes back to, I mean, when I was growing up, when I was in middle school, for some reason, when I was in 8th grade, like, I just thought I was the best wrestler the world has ever seen. I once lost a match to a kid that I guess I thought I shouldn't have lost to, and I almost refused. If it wasn't for my dad, I would have. We were up at a little place called Northwestern Lehigh. All right, it's farm country out here in Pennsylvania, and I lost to a kid, and I thought I shouldn't have lost to him, and I freaked out. And I don't even remember the details of the match. I don't know if you know, it was a tight match, and all of a sudden he tossed me on my back and pinned me, and was just kind of stunned. You know, I don't even remember that part, but I do. I don't remember the details of the match, but I remember my reaction. I stormed off the mat, wanted to refuse to get my medal, cried, probably punched something, you know, all this other crap. My dad basically forced me to get the medal. Right thing to do, right? You fast forward a couple years, senior year in high school. I'm looking to advance to the next level, right, in this tournament. And in a situation, I lost in the semifinals and just didn't really, I think I psyched myself out. Things weren't working here. The kid was just better than me. You know, I wrestled this guy like 3 or 4 times, and I only beat him once. He was a better wrestler than me. And so then I'm wrestling to advance, right? Double overtime, which if you don't know wrestling, basically at the time when I was in high school, you hold the guy down or the guy that's on bottom has to get out. So my goal, my mission, if I hold this guy down for 30 seconds, I win. I'm holding him down. There's like 5 seconds to go. I have I have a maneuver that probably shouldn't be called for stalling here, all right? But the referee calls me for stalling, gives the other kid a point, my season's over. And it turned out to be my career because I didn't wrestle in college. So I get called for stalling, the referee gives the other kid a point, that kid wins, he moves on to the next level, to the next tournament. I sit there in just kind of bewilderment, right? Again, immature Chris, didn't want to wrestle for 5th and 6th place, stormed off the mat, in the locker room, fired up. People are probably feeding into it like, yeah, man, you got screwed. I'm like, yeah, this is BS, freaking out. Probably punched something that day too. Totally immature. Probably tossed the headgear against a wall or something. Who knows what. Didn't know how to handle loss. Didn't know how to handle some adversity when, there's only so much you can control. In that situation, if a referee calls me for stalling and I lose, I wasn't doing enough, right? My mindset wasn't the fact that, like, hey, I should have been working more. It was that I got screwed. That guy sucks. If I see him in the streets, I'll try to fight him. That was my reaction to this referee. I think it took me a while to get over that because I was coaching wrestling too, and I would see that guy still ref, and I was like, God, freaking this guy, man, I can't stand this guy. He's terrible. Anyhow, I think I'm over it now. I'm 35. I think I should be over it. So, young Chris, whatever I tell you in this podcast episode, I'm talking about myself too. Like, I don't want to pinpoint and criticize other kids or other parents, all right? Because I was that individual. My parents made me do stuff. I wanted to quit a sport growing up because I didn't want to go to practice, say, one day. My dad's like, nah, not happening. Let's go, all right? I'm not being critical of anybody. All I'm saying is that I think what would help all kids is a little bit exposure to tough situations, right? I think the toughest moment in my life probably was losing my brother, right? So I've talked about this in previous episodes. About 8 years ago, my brother died. My older brother died. And that was awful, man. Your whole body shakes when you lose a loved one. You get this weird feeling, this weird energy just pours through your body. And it's like you don't even know what to do. You're shaking, you're trembling. You got this vibration occurring in your body. You're freaking out. Your heart's ripped out of you, right? And I was talking to a friend a few years later, and this man he's a New York City firefighter. He asked me the question, like, how do you get over this stuff? And I guess in essence you don't. The only thing that you can do, you don't get over the loss of a loved one. Time, I guess time lessens that potential, like, vibration, that feeling that you have when you first are told the news. So you kind of learn to deal with things a little bit differently and a little bit better, right? But ultimately, you don't really get over stuff like that. And it takes years to even learn how to, properly address certain memories and certain feelings that you may have, right? Anyhow, that situation was the toughest situation of my life. And I think back to it, and I think about, there's a bunch of birds chirping in here. Sorry if you hear that. I think back to that moment in time. I think back to just that experience, right? And what came of that experience for me? One, I learned a tough lesson that, loss is going to happen. We are going to lose people in life. Life is fragile. Our time here on earth is finite, okay? That's one thing. Second thing I learned, and this could be the biggest thing of it all, is that, I learned compassion through this. I was very judgmental of the stuff that my brother was going through. He struggled with a lot of stuff mentally, psychologically, and, he was a drug addict, basically. And I was so judgmental of him at the time, I couldn't understand how my brother got himself to this level. But now, I see these situations, and it led me down this path of trying to learn and understand kind of the way that the brain works in these situations, right? Where we have an addict, right? It's not that this person chooses, hey, I want to go and throw my life away, get arrested, violate probation, be on parole, whatever it may be, right? Then I want to scrounge, I want to steal, I want to go shoot heroin in my arm, I want to betray everybody that I know, all because it's just so I could get one quick fix. That's not the plan of action. Somehow the ball just gets rolling in this direction, and there's something going on in that individual's life that's not valuable enough, to pull them out of that. All right, so they're missing value. Their environment might be wrong, and they might have some psychological, some underlying psychological issue that may be treated. experiencing stuff like that with my brother. So now I learn compassion. I see other people struggling, and I'll talk to them. I'll reach out to them. I'll give somebody another chance. I won't be so judgmental. I see somebody struggling, and I'll try to remember always that, like, one of these days, like every day that they wake up, they could come out of this thing, right? They need a support system. They need somebody to be there. They don't need somebody to smack them in the face. They don't need somebody to kick them out and never talk to them again. They need their environment enriched somehow, some way. And I think one way that you can do that is just actually talking to them and being there for them, right? It's not enabling, but it's just kind of being there. And you're going to get burned a bunch, but, just think about it. If somebody's struggling, if somebody's depressed, if they're an addict, and their family just throws them to the curb, how's that gonna help them get over their depression, addiction, whatever? Yeah, maybe you hear those stories about being a rock bottom, living on the streets, whatever, and they come out of it, right? But it's certain people that these individuals meet along the way. You're not enabling, but you're just kind of there. If that person does fall, you can kind of grab them. Anyhow, the toughest thing that ever happened to me, I learned from it, right? Next time your world the next time that something happens and your world gets rocked, you might be a little bit better for it, all right? So anyhow, where am I going with all this stuff? Hardship. Kids don't experience hardship. I'm not saying you need to lose a loved one to become a better youth. I see kids lose a race, right? And they acted like young Chris did earlier, crying because they lost a race at a speed camp, all right? Crying because they lost a race at a speed camp where they raced about 50 times because they're young kids and they just want to run and race. And kid was in tears almost because he lost. Why? He thought the kid started with his foot in front of him or something. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Another kid, man, somebody's dropping passes. Kid's freaking out. We did a youth camp at a school last week, 70 kids maybe out there. Kid's just freaking out over a dropped pass. Like, come on, what are you doing? And I'm like, hey, man, don't ever talk to your teammates like that, ever. That's not being a teammate. That's being an a-hole. Don't do that stuff. I didn't say that to the kid, but I'm like, don't do that, man. That's not how you talk to people. If you want to win, if you want this kid to show up for you the next play, smack him on the butt. Sorry, not the butt. Smack him on the back, whatever kids do these days, man. Back in the day, there's a lot of butt smacking going on. I don't know if that happens anymore. But pat him on the back, say, let's go, man. We need you, let's go. They got to stay in the game. If that kid drops a pass and he can't handle dropping a pass, he's going to maybe tune out, right? We need to be able to flip the switch and get over this stuff. The more you experience this stuff, how can we experience these tough situations? Coaches, put the kids in these situations. Put them in competitive environments. Put them in an unfair situation and see if they can bounce out of it, because life's going to be unfair at times. Sports are going to be unfair. You might have a referee that stinks. You might have a coach that stinks. You might just have a day where things just don't work out in your favor, right? And if you have some experience of being put in these disadvantaged situations, these unfair situations, so to speak, experience that in training, you're going to be better off for it in practice, right? And if you see a kid and he's freaking out, doesn't know how to handle life, he just dropped a pass, or he drops a ball, spikes a helmet, incomplete pass. Almost saw a fight break out this weekend at a freaking passing camp over absolutely nothing. Kids talking trash, kids taunting the other kids, trash talk escalates. Somebody's about to freak out because they just lost, or they threw a pick, or they had the other team did something, right? Literally in a fight over a passing camp. Now I get it, there's competition, right? But it's like, geez, guys, you can't tip your hand here. If you let that opponent is talking trash and you're seeing it affect you, somebody's always going to be talking trash. There's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be doubters. If you can't handle that at a 7-on-7 scrimmage, how are you going to do it in the district championship or in a state playoff game or in a state championship? All of this stuff is training. Your friends talk trash to you and you can brush it off good. Now you have to work on some other people talking trash to you. That person on the sideline saying, hey, you stink. The other kid saying, hey, nice throw, you're terrible, this, that, and the other thing. You got to be able to tune it out. You got to quiet the noise down, all right? You got to be able to do that. How do we do it? We do it in training. How you respond to those situations is totally controlled by you. I told this kid, I'm like, hey, you just tipped your hand, man, because now you let them know that trash talking they're doing is affecting you, and it's going to affect your play, right? And guess what's going to happen, son? They're going to do it more and more. I talk about the siblings. You have two siblings. That older brother's just pushing buttons, right, with the younger one. And that younger sibling's no, letting his older brother know, or sister know, I don't like that. Stop it. Don't touch me. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. Right? What's the older sibling going to do? He's just going to keep doing it just to get under each other, just to get under the skin. All right? You don't tip your hands. I mean, I listened to Jocko Willink back in the day a lot, and he used to play this game called Normal Face. Right? So he's working with his. I think he has 3 daughters, maybe, and a son too. But anyhow, they would play a game called Normal Face, where they would, somebody would do something to the other one and try to get them to change their facial expression, and then it was that person's goal to just stay normal face. I think it's a good tool. I enjoy that. I enjoy that kind of thinking. Training, preparing, keep normal face. Your brain could be stern right now, but you can't let the people on the outside know what's going on in there. All right? And another thing when I talk about exposing kids, training kids, this is going to be outside of the world of sports now. Parents, supervisors, teachers, guardians, whatever it may be, we have to be careful not to shield your kid from certain situations, right? You want them to explore risky behavior, but not to a point where it becomes unsafe. You want them to walk on a balance beam that's a little bit higher, say, which is actually just a parking garage thing. You want them to walk across there. Now, as they walk, the sidewalk gets further away because it's on a hill. At these moments, you could talk to them. Hey, it's all right. It's just the same beam. All right, it's just the same beam. Some of the things on the outside change a little bit. There's some circumstances that change here, but you're okay. You could walk the beam. All right, you can do this. All right, that's one thing. Say, shielding a family member from certain hardships, like, hey, if you do have a child and you have somebody in the family that's sick, you obviously don't want them to be there when they're taking their last breath, right? That could have some lasting effects. But talking about these things could prepare that kid for the loss of a loved one one day, instead of just having the rug pulled out from under them and them just being totally devastated, all right? Talking to somebody back in the day, they say they didn't want their children to be around funerals, say. Now they're in their teens and they still don't know what that environment's like. There's probably going to be some anxiety around that stuff now as they're older, because they've never been in that situation, all right? You don't have to go and see dead bodies, but you could also allow them to walk through, or just go and sit on the periphery, right? And, I think you just have to teach these kids, and you have to model the perfect way to act in these situations. It's funny, I heard this. It's not funny, but it was an enlightening experience for me to hear. Kids are going to look at your face. If they fall, if something happens to them, they're going to look at your face immediately and see what your face is doing. And then they're going to react based off of what your face is doing, okay? So Emmy here, she just fell walking out of the gym here. We have some stone, and she was out helping me in the mornings, which is great because I love spending time with her, and I get to see her before she goes to school. So she's out helping. She takes a tumble here. She's on hands and knees. She looks up at me, and I'm just looking at her. She dusts herself off and gets up, right? I went normal face on her, and I didn't change my facial expression. And I think she was looking to me to see if I was going to react. If I was going to be like, oh, are you okay? Or, oh my God, stuff like that. If I would have done that, it could have affected her response. It didn't. I stayed normal face. Emmy stayed normal face. She dusted herself off. She got up, and she went back to work to help me out, right? We teach our kids how to act. They will model us, good or bad. All right, so we got to be mindful of that. We want to slowly expose these kids to risky situations or to tough situations, anxiety-producing situations. Okay, slowly expose them to that, but do it in a safe manner. Don't just throw them in there. We have to introduce things. Now, I feel like I talk about this all the time, but I really wanted to talk about it just based off of some stuff that I've seen in sports. As a coach, parent, whatever it is, expose them to some stuff. Put them in risky situations and see how they respond. We're not putting them on a tightrope 50 feet in the air and seeing if they could walk the beam, so to speak. We might put that balance beam up 2 feet and say, hey, let's go. Nothing changed about this beam. The only thing that changes is the stuff surrounding you. If you just walk the balance beam perfect, on the floor, let's raise it up now. It's the same beam. You could do this, all right? Stay focused. Keep your eyes on the target. Don't let that external stuff come into play, right? If you walk that balance beam and nothing and your eyes are just on your footsteps or on the beam or however you go about doing it, that's good. The moment you peek over the side and see that you're 2 feet up in the air now, that's when things get a little bit interesting, okay? So we have to remember that, all right? Slow exposure to stuff. Let's introduce risk, but in a safe manner, all right? You don't just have your kid go and do crazy stuff. Let's introduce challenges in practice if you're coaching, right? Introduce tough situations. Hey, that just happened. Now you need to deal with it. We got the backup quarterback in. We need to figure out a way to get a first down. Let's make it happen. Guy's out. He got hurt. Somebody got ejected. It's 3rd and 17. What are we going to do? We're down 2 scores. We need to get back in the game. This is how we're going to handle this situation. All of that stuff. If you're a wrestling coach, jiu-jitsu coach, whatever, put one kid in an awful situation. You're on your back if it's wrestling, say. We're going to wrestle live from here. You got 15 seconds to get out, all right? Or this guy in jiu-jitsu has a hold on you. We're starting on the ground in this position. Let's train. Let's practice to get the heck out of this position, all right? You catch the idea, right? Create a little bit of hardship. Learn lessons from hardship. Don't let it destroy you. You choose how you respond to hardship. You know, it's going to take time sometimes. Some stuff is going to be tough. When you have these anxious feelings towards certain things, we have to just kind of work through them, all right? In conclusion here, I don't even know what the conclusion is to all this, other than expose, expose, expose. Train. Remember normal face. You're a parent. Remember normal face when things go awry, all right? Try not to be too up and down with your reactions to things, all right? And then keep pressing along. We're in control of how our kids that we coach or the kids that we raise, right? They're gonna model their behavior after us, and if we act in a mature way and we act in a good, positive way, they're gonna see that and they're gonna hopefully follow suit. You don't have to have these elaborate conversations all the time. These kids will model your behavior. They don't miss a thing. They're smart. They can handle it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry about the birds. The birds are up and they're ready to go. They're ready to attack the day. These parent birds are probably teaching the babies how to live life the same way that we're trying to live life. I hope you guys like this one. Peace, everybody.